Welcome back to Daily Dose. My name is Robert. It's my pal Susan, decked out in our Warrior Yellows, top and mid. And there's a point that I wanted to bring forward this season. Starts with a bit of drama. I don't know if it's reached your point of attention about the incident last week where Draymond Green punched Jordan Poole in the face. So Draymond Green, as we've brought up in the show, is one of those characters who people sometimes question his value, and other people's go, it's unbelievably instrumental. One of the core three that has been part of their 4 championships. And Jordan Poole is the up and coming. And last week at practice, Draymond got into it with Jordan, which is not unusual. He gets into it with a lot of people, but he went up, got in Jordan's face. Jordan pushed him away, didn't want to deal with it. And Draymond's response was to punch him in the face. And if you see the video of this, you'll know it wasn't like hey, knock it off or whatever. I mean, this was meant to hurt. It was an ugly punch. I don't know if you've been around real violence before, seen like that type of thing. It is a turn your stomach moment. And wow. It went from, here's this season about to start off defending championship and so much great hope, and to all of a sudden, are we dismantling this thing? And as of right now, they're holding on. And tonight will be the first time Draymond's back with the team, playing with them. And Jordan has chosen to be a pro and move forward, and he's playing quite well. So it'll be interesting to see. And it brings up something we've talked about here in the dose. I think generally I had a thought, and I want to go this with you about, because once again, anytime something like this happens, like we talked about the Will Smith slap, with Chris Rock. And we haven't talked about it directly, but violence with the January 6 hearings is very much part of things. I wonder about the history of violence in our species. Historically, we've been a warlike species. You look back at history every 20 years or so in many cultures. That's who we are. And I wonder, how and if we can evolve past that to where we think that violence, because there's a group of people that still think violence is a necessary part of our life. Yeah. So anyway, I open that up. I know that's a lot, but I wonder about that.
Yeah, sure. It is. Where I start initially is we have a reptilian brain where there's a part of us that we can't escape that has fight as part of its repertoire. It also has run away, flight or freeze. But the fight is part of it. So that's part of who we are. And I think it's historic and sociologic and cultural evolution that's helped the human brain develop this ability to have some emotional component and some oversight, the limbic brain, and then the rest of it. I don't know. I think impulsivity like that, Robert, I think we are ultimately, I feel like maybe this is just getting too much in the upper stratosphere of brain thinking, but I feel like we're responsible for what we do. So if you have a reaction like he did, like they both did, I don't know. I think we are responsible for holding the punch.
I think I feel the same way. And I also know this, and this is what's so interesting to me. At some point, I probably would like to do some research on a sociological level about this, is how many people feel the same way about every level of violence. You know what I mean? And systemically, where
the push was okay, but the punch wasn't.
Right. Yeah. Get opinions and measure each mark and say, how did you feel about, those things? And then maybe how did you feel about the Will Smith, Chris Rock thing? How did you feel, about, January 6th as a response? And to see, are we talking about the same group of people? Is there variance among them? And then one of the ties actually for me within this would be to say how people feel about corporal punishment for children, and to see how much of this is tied to our youth. If you were introduced to violence as a reasonable solution as a child, are you carrying that forward to suggest that a punch in the face is a reasonable thing, that destruction of property is a reasonable thing? And I'm saying this with no judgment right now. I'm genuinely researcher-wise curious to see if there's a line between those feelings.
I think there is, because I think children model the behavior they see from their parents. If there's conscious conversation about it, maybe that will affect things.
Right.
But without that, I think the modeling is the modeling.
And it's back to the nature nurture question, which is systemic to so many things of our human development in our society. And really, again, where are we going to go? We have a choice all the time to say whether or not this is okay, and whether or not we're going to allow it, and how we're going to make a change, and are we only going to look at the top level, or are we going to look at the fundamental, the foundation?
It all counts. And so does 5 minutes. So we're off the hook. We don't have to solve this right now. We're past 5 minutes.
That's your daily dose. Don't forget to subscribe and like. And this is just an example that sometimes we go off, and you can join us for conversations about all kinds of things. Take care.